continue to recover the economy, especially the physical economy. Facing the challenges at home and abroad, for example, the clusters of the cases, under the strong leadership of the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, we have applied the instructions of the CPC and also the central government. We have enhanced the macro regulation of the economy and continue with the 6 guarantees and 6 insurances. National economy continues to pick up. Industrial and agricultural development continue to be very steady, and also employment is very steady. There is only a moderate increase of the consumer's price, and there is greater and greater resilience in the economy. In general, the economic performance is steady. First of all, the crop production has realized a new record. Industrial production has also reached a new height. Autumn crop production more than 1 trillion jin, up by 1.9%. Across the whole year, the national production of the crop reached 1.3 trillion jin, up by 2% year-on-year. For 7 years in a row, we have maintained this production of 1.3 trillion jin. Last year, the added value of the large-scale industries up by 3.8%. The 2-year average of growth 5.4%, which is 0.2 percentage points higher than last month's growth. When we look at the different sectors, mining added value year-on-year up by 6.2%, manufacturing up by 2.9%, heating, electricity and water supply and production up by 11.1%. High-tech manufacturing added value year-on-year grew by 15.1%, which is 0.4 percentage points higher than the last month. 2-year average growth of 12.9%. New energy vehicles integrated circuit year-on-year increase by 27.9% and 11.9%. State-owned enterprises added value year-on-year grew by 3.6%. Shareholding enterprises up by 4.5%. Foreign investors and China's Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan invested enterprises grew by 1.9%. For the first 11 months, above-scale industrial added value up by 10.1%. Last month, manufacturing purchasing price has also realized an increase. Large-scale industrial revenue profit margin is 7.01, up by 1.04 percentage points. Services have recovered. New forms of services have popped up. For last month, the service production index up by 3.1%, which is down by 0.1 percentage points. 2-year average growth of 5.6%. Information transmission, software and logistics up by 12% year-on-year. Leasing and commercial services up by 7.7% for the first 11 months. This index grew by 14%. 2-year average growth of 6% for the first 11 months. A large-scale service margin grew by 22.1%. 2-year average up by 10.6% compared to the first 10 months is the same level of growth. Activity index is 55.1%. Those related to manufacturing, their business index is above 55, and it is a very good range. And third, the sales and market have maintained a very steady status. The social retail, 4.1 trillion, up by 3.9% year-on-year, which is 1 percentage point down compared to the previous month. 2-year average of 4.4 percentage points, down by 0.2 percentage points than the previous month. For the urban social retails, 3.5 trillion RMB, up by 3.7%, and the urban number and the rural number up by 4.8%. For the goods sales, year-on-year growth by 4.8%, catering revenue more than 400 billion RMB, down by 2.7%. Basic living goods consumption grows very fast. The beverage, crops, and oil, their revenue of sales up by 15 and 14%. Upgraded consumption is also growing rapidly. Large-scale office appliances and cosmetics revenue of sales up by 18% and 8.2%. For the first 11 months, social retail totaled 40 trillion RMB, up by 3.7%, two-year average, a growth of 3.4%. Online sales for the first 11 months, year-on-year grew by 15.4%. And for last month only, up by 3%. And their proportion, online sales proportion in the total social consumers' consumption also grew by some percentage points. For the first 11 months, fixed asset investment, 49 trillion RMB, up by 5.2% compared to the first 10 months, down by 0.9 percentage points, two-year average growth of 3.9%. Last month, the circular increase is 0.19 percentage points. Manufacturing investment up by 13.7%, real estate investment up by 6%. Sales of the commercial housing up by 4.8%, two-year average increase of 3.1%. The total sales volume up by 8.5%. When we look at different industries, primary industry up by 9.3%, food investment, secondary 11.1%, tertiary industry 2.5%, private investment up by 7.7 percentage points year-on-year, two-year average growth of 3.8%, same level as the first 10 months. High-tech investment year-on-year up by 16.6%, two-year average of 14.2% compared to the first 10 months, that is 7 percentage points higher. For the high-tech manufacturing, high-tech services, year-on-year up by 22.2 and 6.4 percentage points. High-tech manufacturing includes computer manufacturing and office appliances and telecommunication facilities up by 26 and 24.7 percentage points. High-tech electronic services and testing equipment investment up year-on-year by 47 and 14.8%. Social investment, two-year average of growth 10.8%. Into healthcare and education up by 26 and 9.5 percentage points. 5. Goods import and exports continues to grow and with better structure. Last month, the total volume of import and export up by 25 percentage points. For export, up by 16%. Import, 1.6 trillion yuan, up by 26%. So there is the surplus of the trade of goods. For the first 11 months, import-export of the goods totaled 35 trillion RMB, up by 22%. Export, 19.6 trillion yuan, up by 16%. Private import and export proportion in the total is 48.5%, up by 2.2 percentage points year-on-year. Machineries and electronics proportion in the total import and export is 50.9%. Urban and rural employment continues to grow and they are maintained at a very steady level. For the first 11 months, we have newly added more than 10 million new jobs. We have exceeded the goal we set. For last month, the surveyed unemployment rate is up by 0.5 percentage points than the previous month, and compared to the same period of last year, there is a downturn development. For people between 16 and 24 years old, unemployment rate is 4.3%. And for the age group 25 to 59, the unemployment rate is 4.3%. For the large cities, unemployment rate is 5.1%, same as the last month. Average working hours per week is 47.8 hours. CPI is relatively stable. PPI has retained its growth. Last month, the CPI has been up by 0.8%, circular increase of 0.4 percentage points. For the food and beverage, up by 1.7%, clothing up by 0.5 percentage points, housing up by 1.7%, daily necessities and services up by 0.5%, transportation and telecommunication up by 7.6%, education, culture and entertainment up by 3.0%, healthcare up by 0.6%, the other services and goods down by 0.6%. For the food, beverage, etc., the pork price year-on-year down by 32%, crop up by 1.5%, fresh fruit up by 4.1%, fresh vegetables up by 30.6%. If we deduct the food and the energy, the core CPI has deducted 1 percentage point of increase compared to the last month. Last month, the PPI year-on-year grew by 12.6%, which has narrowed by 0.6% compared to the previous month. Circular increase is at the same level as the last month. For the last 11 months, the PPI and also the purchasing price grew by 7.9% and up by 10.7 percentage points respectively. In general, last month, we have maintained the recovery momentum of the national economy. Major indicators, they are within the rational range. We also have to consider the complexity of international environment. We're also facing a lot of challenges in boosting the national economy. We have to continue to work under the Xi Jinping thought of socialism with Chinese characteristics in a new era, and also apply the guidelines of the Central Economic Work Conference and also the 6th plenary session of the 19th CPC Central Committee, continue with the construction of a new development paradigm, continue with the reform and opening up policy so that we can realize the high-quality economic development, have the 6 guarantees and the 6 stabilities, and also apply some counter-cyclical regulation, macroeconomic policies, maintain the indicators within the rational range, stabilize the whole economy and the society so we can ensure the sustainability of the society and the country. Thank you very much, Mr. Fu. Now the floor is open for your questions. Please first identify yourself. Thank you. Thank you. I'm with CCTV. According to your briefing, compared to October, in November, there are some rapid growth and slow growth with the indicators. What is your comment on the economic performance last month? Thank you for your question. Considering November, we have continued with the economic recovery. With the counter-cyclical measures, we have stabilized the economy. We have tried to solve the imbalance between supply and demand. In November, the economy continues to pick up, especially with the real economy. And also the CPI and PPI remain stable. We have successfully guaranteed people's daily living and guaranteed the quality of development. First of all, when we look at the accumulative numbers, major indicators, they are within the rational range. For the first 11 months, above scale industrial added value up by 10.1%, service index up by 14%, social retails up by 13.7%, goods import and export up by 22%. That is all very rapid growth. For the first 11 months, urban surveyed unemployment rate is 5.1%, which is lower than the expected 5.5%. CPI grew by 0.9 percentage points, lower than the expected 3%. Foreign reserve for 7 months in a row remained $3.2 trillion, and we have a very good balance of payments. And also, secondly, for the crops, we are doing very well with the production. For the autumn crops, year-on-year grew by 1.9%. Total annual production of the crops, 1.3 trillion jin, up by 2%. For years in a row, we have maintained at this level of more than 1.3 trillion jin, and this harvest has helped to stabilize the price and the market performance. And third, industrial activities are doing well. Last month, above-scale industrial added value up by 13.8%. For 2 months, we have registered a faster speed. Manufacturing up by 2.4%, PPI up by 2.1%, back to the rational range. It can help to ensure the development of the real economy. Fourth, stability of the price is releasing its results. For the raw coal production, up by 4.6%, which is 0.6 percentage points higher than the previous month. And the PPI of the coal down by 4.9%. And we have also guaranteed the supply of the zinc for the manufacturing of the vehicles. And we have slowed down the decrease of production of the vehicles, metal containers, and also integrated circuits up by more than 100% and 37%. There is more supply in the market, which helps to ease the tension with the price. Last month, the PPI up by 12.9%, which has narrowed by 0.6 percentage points compared to October. For producing materials, narrowed by 0.9 percentage points. And fifth, for the well-being of the people and daily necessities, we have guaranteed, for example, the supply of the daily necessities of the people. Transformation of processing of the goods up by 9%, large-scale crop, beverage, and oil up by 14.8 and 15.5%, higher than the previous month. We have successfully satisfied the need of the people. We have invested more in the well-being of the people. Education, healthcare investment, year-on-year up by 9.5 and 6%. Sixth, high-quality development grew very fast. High-tech and technology-intensive industries grew very fast. Last month, above-scale high-tech manufacturing added value year-on-year grew by 15.1%, which has accelerated by 1 percentage point. Robots manufacturing up by 112%. Investment structure and consumption structure improved. Manufacturing structure also improved. Manufacturing added value and investment higher than the whole sector. High-tech investment up by 22%. Consumption has a very good momentum. Large-scale consumption of the cosmetics and office appliances up by 8.2 and 18 percentage points respectively, higher than the national average. High level of opening up the country has also brought us fruitful results. Import and exports of the goods year-on-year up by 20.5% in November. Goods trade continue to improve. For the first 11 months, general import and exports account for a higher proportion in the total import and export. It means that we have continued to strengthen the fiscal economic performance. At the same time, we have to stay vigilant that there's more complexity in the international environment. There are from time to time the clusters of COVID-19 cases in the country. So we have to continue to apply the guidelines of the important meetings of the country and to put stability at the top of our agenda, stabilize the economy and the society, to apply the new philosophy of development and build in our country new paradigm for development. Make sure that the major indicators are always operating within the rational range. Next question, please. I'm from Tianmu News. Recently, we have published the yearbook 2021. There's a figure inside for the net increase of population for 2020. Recently, we have also declared new policies to encourage more childbirth. What is the current policy's impact on the future demographic development and also the economy? For population and also their relationship with the future labor force. From an economic point of view, population is a very important factor of production. In our country in recent years, the demographic changes are on the way. According to the recent statistics, we have noticed that China's labor force resources have the following characteristics. First of all, in general, we have relatively abundant resources of labor force. According to the authority of the censoring, the age group between 16 to 59 years old reached 880 million people. And every year, we have more than 10 million new babies coming to the country. So that is a very big edge of our country. And secondly, we have improved the education level of our labor force. And also, not only for the cultural side, but also for their physical conditions. I have some figures for 2020. For the age group of 16 to 59 years old, the average duration of education received is 10.75 years, which is higher than the previous round of censoring. For people holding a degree above high school, is also very high. Considering their physical conditions, the longevity is 77.3 years old, and more people are in good health. So on the one hand, they are better in their physical conditions. On the other hand, they have better education. This is a very good news for the labor force market. And thirdly, we also have to consider the percentage points of the younger generation. For the age group 0 to 14 years old, the proportion is up by 3.5 percentage points compared to the result of 2010. And currently, we have already published a policy to encourage the third child in the family, and this would help to boost the growth of population in the country. We also have some other following up policies to support those families that have the willingness to have a third child in the family. And moving forward, there would be more favoring conditions for those families. Considering the future development in China, in the past, we have a lot of investment of low-cost labor force to drive up the economic growth. And in the future, we have to realize the transition, which means we have to put more focus on technology, and we have to boost up the economic growth with the help of the science and technologies. Today, people, they are better cultivated, they have a higher level of education. And this is an adaptation of into our times. I think it will help us to cope with the new circumstances. Thank you. I'm from the Reuters. What is the reason behind the downturn economic pressure? And will this downward pressure continue until the first half of next year? And will the 2022 Winter Olympics cause the temporary shutdown of relevant factories? Thank you for your question. This time in the National Economic Work Conference, we have mentioned the downward pressure on the national economy. In that economic work conference, we have already mentioned the 3 layers of tensions and challenges facing the complexity of the international environment and also the domestic pressures. For example, the upgrowing prices of the commodities. We are facing another round of downward pressure for the economic performance. According to the statistics, we can also feel the pressure coming from the 3 tiers. Considering the demand, social retail year-on-year grew by single-digit rate. In the beginning of the year, it's double-digit growth. In the recent 2 months, we have improved the situation. For the investment growth, year-on-year, in the beginning of the year, it's double-digit growth, and now it's back to the single-digit growth. And when we look at the 2-year average, it's also back to the single-digit growth. The commodities in the international market, the price is going up, and there is also the tension between the supply and demand domestically. The PPI growth in January up by 0.3%, then enlarged to 13.5% in October. And last month, it has narrowed down, but still it remained at a very high level. The manufacturing of the vehicles have also reduced. This is from the shock of the imbalance between supply and demand. The PMI during September down back to the rational range. For the PMEs, their PMI for 4 months remained inside that rational range. In November, service business activity 55%, down by 0.5 percentage points than the previous month. For the catering and also the restoration, down back to the rational range. This is caused by the sporadic clusters of the cases of COVID-19. Considering the growth, for the first 3 quarters, the GDP 2-year average is 5%, 5.5%, and 4.9%. So there's a significant downward momentum in the 3rd quarter. This is also another symbol of the downward pressure. If we look at the long-term development, we have to admit, first of all, there would be continuous existence of the 3 layers of challenges, but we also have to see the resilience, which is quite strong with the Chinese economy. We will continue with the counter-cyclical and a cross-cyclical macroeconomic regulation, and combined with the good foundation of the Chinese economy, we are sure about the economic performance. You have also mentioned about the 2022 Winter Olympics, their impact on the relevant business and industries would be quite limited. And from the paper, you have mentioned that last month, the manufacturing PMI realized the first growth after 8 months of downturn and is back to the expansive range. What are the factors to support this recovery of the PMI? What is your prediction about the next month PMI in manufacturing? Thank you very much for this question. Just now, I have also touched upon this question. in this year, the market expectation is weaker. In November, manufacturing PMI, in September and in October remains in the narrowing range, and in November it's back to the expensive range. First of all, we have stabilized the supply and the price in the markets. That is the first factor. In November, the PPI up by 20.6%, which has narrowed by 0.9 percentage points than the previous month, among which the coal price, circular, down in the price, and also for the steel and other minerals, they have also registered a moderate growth. All those factors have contributed to the control of cost of the enterprises. And the second, number two, is the support from the government side to help to ease the tension and also the pressure on the shoulders of the enterprises. Facing the rising material price, especially for those enterprises working on the downstream, and also enterprises in a very small scale, we have published the preferential policies to help them out. Moving forward in the next stage, there will be continuous pressure in the environment, but we have this very good fundamentals and also a good momentum. We will continue to apply the policies to support the stability of the market, and also we can have the confidence in the stability of the market operation.
Thank you. Bloomberg News. If we could ask, with investment and consumption slowing, apart from exports, what growth drivers do you see? Also, what will you do to boost consumption and income in 2022? Thank you.
请翻译一下问题。
您好，我是彭博新闻社的记者。两个问题。第一呢，除了投资之外呢，您觉得除了这个出口之外，在投资和消费方面，您如何看待这两个因素如何推进经济的增长？第二个呢，在2020年，政府会出台什么样的措施来促进消费，推进居民的收入上涨？谢谢。
谢谢您的提问。应该说呢
，Thank you very much for this question. When we look at China's economy, consumption has contributed to the national growth, and that contribution has gone down last year due to COVID-19, but this year we have picked up this force of contribution. And investment has also been improved. In general, domestic consumption has maintained a very high level of contribution, more than 80% to the national economic growth. Moving forward, expansion of domestic consumption will still be a very meaningful work, and we also have a very huge potential with the domestic consumption. We have 1.4 billion people in the country, and also more than 400 million people with the middle income. This is exactly what we can expect to see during a stage of expansive consumption in the country. We are releasing this high potential for the consumption. And at the same time, we are the largest developing country in the world. The per capita capital possession is not as high as that in the developed countries. There is also the gap between urban and rural areas. This means that in the future, we can embrace this opportunity. Today, we have the high-tech development and industrialization. If we can combine the two factors, we have to stimulate the investment. In the future, we also have some constraints in developing further domestic market between the cities and the countryside, and also among the sectors, there is still the great gap. Sometimes it will constrain the development of consumption, and also the constraints about the resources of the raw materials. Moving forward into the next stage, we have to continue to expand the domestic demand and consumption. We also have the enabling conditions Concerning the second half of this year, China's economy is still enjoying a very good support from the domestic market. Employment is doing well in China, and there's also good guarantee for people's revenue. We are also proceeding with the supply side structural reform, and then the demand can be better adapted. In the next stage, China's economic growth can still enjoy very good pillars of support. Next question, please. I'm from the South China Morning Post. With the collection of the figures in November, do you have any prediction about the 4 quarters of the year? Can we expect to see an 8% of growth of GDP? And what about the goal of GDP growth of next year? Will you set the bar at around 5% or even up to 5.5%? Thank you very much for your attention to the growth rate of GDP. For the prediction of the GDP growth, according to our role as the National Statistics Bureau, we do the internal calculation. However, we will not release the result of our prediction to the outside world because we only stay responsible for the confirmed figures. But still, I can give you some references. Currently, we are facing growing complexity in the international environment. There is the higher pressure for inflation. Our national economy is also facing 3 layers of the challenges. But at the same time, we also have the long-term optimistic momentum for the growth, and we have a very strong resilience. We have favorable policies in place to stabilize the market and help the enterprises out. We have controlled the cost of the production for the enterprises. We have stabilized the employment rate, and we have improved the quality of the opening up of the country. And we may expect to see the normal development of the economy next year because, first of all, the trend remains unchanged for a very positive growth. For the first 3 quarters, the GDP has realized a year-on-year growth of 9.8%. And throughout this year, the GDP growth could expect to be more than 8%, which is higher than the majority of the countries in the whole world. Last month, the surveyed unemployment rate is 5 percentage points, 0.2 percentage points lower than the previous year. And the CPI growth is moderate for the first 11 months. CPI year-on-year grew by 0.9%. And that is much lower than the expected one. If we deduct the food and energy, the core CPI registered a growth year-on-year of 0.8%. That is also very moderate. Surplus of the goods trade for the first 11 months grew by 20%. We have also improved the balance of payments. And second, sectorial development foundation has been strengthened. For agriculture, we have maintained a very abundant harvest of the crops. For example, for 7 years in a row, we have maintained the output of 1.3 trillion jing annually. Manufacturing added value accounts for 27.4% in the national total. And for the first 10 months, manufacturing added value up by 10%, higher than the other industries. 2-year average growth of 4.3%. Industrial chain has better resilience for the first 11 months. For the production of the integrated circuit and also for the containers, we have kept up with the production. For the charcoal and also electricity, we have stabilized the price. And third, we have strengthened the propelling forces for the economic growth. There's more dynamism in the market actors. We have improved the market environment, so the players in this markets, they are more active. We also have different forms of shareholding forms of enterprises. Private enterprise import and export year-on-year grew by 27.8%, which account for 48.5 percentage points, up by 2.2 percentage points than the previous year. For the first 11 months, actual use of FDI up by 17.8%, in the high-tech and service up by 23 and 20.3%. We also have to notice that we have more and more major scientific results. For example, the space exploration, the 5G commercialization. New inventions have contributed a lot to the economic development. This means that we have strong pillars of support in boosting the economic development in the country. We also have very good national policies, and we can achieve the goals we have set for this year, considering next year's production. Facing multiple rounds of pressures, we have to bear in mind the fact that the fundamentals have not changed. We have the confidence to overcome the difficulties and support economic development. First of all, expanded domestic demand. With the rising revenue of the people, they can have more capability to consume more. If we can control the pandemic, next year we can expect to see a continuous growth with the consumption inside the country. And for the infrastructure side, we will make more progress and also to increase the impact of the effective investment. Science and technologies continue to grow. 5G layout is developing very fast. New materials and new healthcare products, they are growing up. For the major elements and parts, we have invested more and realized more results. This year, the innovation index of China rose up to the 12th place in the whole world. For 9 years in a row, we have climbed up the ladder. We have also closed down the gap between the countryside and the cities. And the disposable income of the citizens is 2.62 times that of the farmers, and we have deregulated the economy in order to give more freedom to the actors in the ground. And we have also realized the opening up towards the outside world at a higher level and also with better quality. Fifth, to build up a new paradigm for development. Super large markets and industrial system are revealing its advantages, building the Belt and Road Initiative and also the 2 circles of economy. They are also bringing to us the good news. Next question, please. Thank you. Recently, for some consumers' goods, they have announced about the potential rising price, and that rising price are caused by the rising price of the raw materials. Will this have a negative impact on realization of the goals we set at the beginning of the year? Pricing issue is an issue of common interest. In November, the CPI year-on-year has realized an increase up by 2.3 percentage points, up by 0.8 percentage points compared to the previous month. And this growing CPI in November is caused by the several factors. First of all, when we look at last year's CPI, it was at a very low level because last year, by November, it has been reduced by less than 1 percentage point. So that base number is relatively low. That's why this year, when we do the year-on-year calculation for the growth of CPI for November, there is a significant growth. And secondly, for the vegetables, the price is rising. We have to consider the climate conditions. In winter, it's more difficult for us to get the fresh vegetables. This is a supply reason. And the circular increase of price of the fresh vegetable has realized a downturn development. But still, it's growing. And the pork price has dropped. All those factors combined, you can expect to see a growing CPI. And for the industrial consumers goods, for the diesels and the petrols, there's faster growth of the price. When we look at the international energy market in November, for the two resources up by 37% and 40% respectively. That's why we can also feel this turbulence in the domestic market price. However, if we deduct the factors of the food and also the energy, when we look at the development and the increase of the core CPI, it's mainly stabilized. The moderate increase of CPI is also due to several positive factors. First of all, the sufficient supply of the crops. Again, I've mentioned that this year we have realized more than 1.3 trillion jing of the autumn crop, and for 7 years in a row we have maintained the output annually at this level. This has ensured sufficient supply of the crops. For the vegetables, we have the winter season reason. For the pigs, production and supply of the pigs have restored their original capacity, and moving forward, we will expect to see the factors of the festivals like the New Year and the Lunar Chinese New Year. So I may expect to see the continuous moderate rise of the price of the pigs, but there would not be the risk of rapid surge of the price of the pigs. And for the energy prices, for the petrol and diesel pricing, they are still under the influence of the international market. There are also some other uncertainties with the prices. For the services, the increase of the price is very stable. For the clothing, daily necessities, and healthcare, up by 0.5, 0.5, and 0.6 percentage points respectively in terms of CPI. And we have a very good foundation for securing the stability of the price. Next question, please. Thank you. In the Central Economic Work Conference, we have put the focus on the savings. What is the consideration behind that? And also for the intensive economic growth. Today, we are at a higher stage of economic growth, and we have also improved the efficiency of the utilization of resources. But still, we have to admit that compared with the developed countries, we still have a long way to go in improving our efficiency of resources use. If we consider the per capita possession of resources, the arable land per person is less than half of the world average. Per capita possession of the water resources accounts for 1/4 of the world's average. For the oil and gas, and also the major iron minerals and the other minerals is also lower than the world average. for the utilization of the resources.
粗放利用的这种状况还是存在的。
It's more like extensive utilization of resources for 2020.
万元国内生产总值的能
For every 10,000 RMB of GDP,
是0.55吨标准煤。
the consumption of energy is 0.55
那么我们在
tons of standard coal, which is much higher than the world average. And for per unit of production of the steel and aluminum is also higher than the world average in terms of consumption of resources and energy. Today, we are facing more constraints of the utilization of resources. If we continue with the old path to use the resources as we want and in a more extensive way, it's not sustainable, and that's why this time during the National Economic Work Conference, we have noticed that it is important to save more energy and use it more wisely. Thank you. I'm from the Shenzhen TV. In the Central Economic Work Conference, we have put the focus on stability. How can we ensure the stability of the economy for next year? Thank you very much for your question.
方面呢，应该说中央经济工作会呢已经对明年
Talking about the policies, this Central Conference has made it very clear for the next stage, we have to apply all the guidelines given by the central government.
制定部分。谢谢。
And I would like to recommend you to ask this question to the department and authority in charge of this. Next question, please. I'm from the Fengmian News. According to the statistics, the personal loans for the purchase of the real estate has been up. What is your prediction on the future development of the real estate? Real estate is also an issue of common interest. Real estate is also an important part of the national economy. For production, consumption, and investment, it has a very strong link with all those three sectors. It's correlated with people's well-being and happiness. Since the 19th CPC Congress, we say that
短期刺激经济的手段。
housing is for living and not for speculation. Local governments has also followed the instructions of the central government to stabilize the price of the real estate and stabilize the expectation in the market. And we have taken measures to ease the tensions and also to remove all the obstacles and problems. This is a measure to help the transformation of the national economy. In recent years, local governments have taken meaningful measures to ensure a healthy development of real estate. For some cities, the real estate pricing have been curbed. And in general, the pricing is very stable. Investment into commodity real estate continues to grow, but it's very moderate growth.
比1至10月份呢回落2.5个百分点。房地产
The surface of real estate sold for last month grew by 4.8%.
部分城市呢受人口
We also have to admit that for some cities, they have
一些前期
suffered from
债盲目扩
the
张
migration of the people, outbound migration of their citizens. So in their places, the real estate has suffered from the dropping price.
比如说
In both
通过市场的调整呢，市场
direction, we have to take measures to stabilize the price, to make the market players more rational, and also to make the system in the marketplace better adapted to the situation. We have to continue to apply the national guideline of make real estate and housing a place to live instead of a product of speculation. We have to adopt adapted policies,
生活需
ensure the healthy development of the market, and to satisfy people's demand. Due to the limit of the time, there will be 2 last questions for today. Thank you. I'm from the Hong Kong SAR. The downgrade consumption has become a buzzword. What is your comment on the downgrading of the consumption, and what is your expectation for the Spring Festival consumption? In recent 2 years, due to the COVID-19,
消费往往会受到这个疫情的扰动。那么，但是从
consumption can be
消费升级的态势在持续。
impacted by the external environment. I've not noticed significant signals for the downgrading of the consumption. For the first 11 months,
升级类商品
large-scale
同比增长了34%。
upgrading consumption grew by 34.1 and 32%, for example, for the purchase of cosmetics and for the office appliances. The sales of vehicles have dropped a little bit, mainly due to the shortage of the chips used in the vehicles. There is a shortage of supply in the market, but still, for the new energy vehicle, the production and supply and sales have been doubled. For the high-end brands of vehicles, they have also enjoyed very good sales of their products. In the future, we may expect to see the upgrading of the consumption and upgrading of the sales. Considering last month's statistics, the market sales has recovered in general, and also due to the reasons of the sporadic clusters
那么11月份
of
呢，
cases,
社会消费
we
同
have
比增长
put stability on top of our
比
agenda.
上月回落1个百分点。2年
The
平均
year-on-year
增长
growth of social consumers retail
那么具体来看
is
呢，
3.9%.
从餐饮
More
收入来看
details for you.
这个受疫情
For
的
the
影响
catering revenue,
那么速度呢是
heavily
增转降。
hit by
11
COVID-19,
月份呢，餐饮
the
收入
growth rate has dropped. For November, 2-year average growth
上月是
down by
3.7%。
1.7%. Last
从
month,
商品零售来看呢，
single
保持稳定。
month growth
11月份的商品零售
1.7%.
额
In general,
2年
it's
平均增长了
stabilized.
0.3%。
Goods retail's 2-year
加
average
快
growth of
上月的消费率增长
5.3%, which is
其中
more
基本生活类和升
0.3
级类
percentage points
商
higher
品
than the
零售
previous month.
均保持较快的增长。
Necessities of daily
11月份的
life
现楼
also
以上
maintained a
单位
very
粮油
good
食品类
growth.
饮料类的商品零
Last
售额分
month,
别增长了14.8% 和
large-scale
15%。
crop beverage up by 15.5%, office appliances and cosmetics, and the other upgrading consumption goods up by 18.1 and 8.2 percentage points higher than the total average. When we look at online sales, it's also growing very fast. For the first 11 months, online retail year-on-year grew by 13.2%. Their proportion in total social retail reached 24%. Moving forward, there are also a lot of enabling conditions for the restoration of consumption. For example, the restoration of business for enterprises and also the guarantee for the revenue and salaries for the people. We have also realized a very moderate CPI increase, so in general, the price is very stable in the market. Social security network has covered more people. This helped to boost up people's confidence in consumption.
增长都是保持比较快的一个
The transfer of payment has also increased very fast.
对消费，特别是
At the same time, we have to notice the negative impact brought by the COVID-19 cases outbreak. Recently, in some places, the fresh vegetable has also realized a fast growth.
维护好
Moving forward, we have to coordinate economic growth with COVID-19 prevention and control, consolidate people's confidence in consumption, and also we have to take measures to satisfy their demand. Last question for today.
你好，大公报香港汇报提问。近期
I'm from the Dagong Journal. Recently, in mainland China, local governments have published the announcement to invite people to spend the
消费的这个变化，
Spring Festival
下阶段
in the same city and not to travel for their hometown. What is your comment?
那么对于就地过年，下阶段啊，对于消费的这个
For this in situ celebration of Spring Festival, we still have to wait and see to know the impact and influence.
那我们再多
So maybe we can allow for an extra question for today. So we are running out of time. That is really the last question for today. I'm from the CCTV. I have two small questions. First of all, CPI up by 3.1%, two-year average up by 5.6%. And people think that services can do a better job in the future. What are the measures to improve the performance of the services? Second question is that you have mentioned about the stability in the growth of real estate. And according to the statistics about the growth of the real estate last month, the price is dropping moderately. Does it mean that there's the cooling effect with the real estate market? And will this downward development momentum continue until next year? What are the measures to stabilize and maintain the healthy development of the real estate? Thank you. So you have asked about development of the services and also the real estate market development and the changes. Considering last month development services have maintained a very good recovery, year-on-year growth has narrowed down, but the two-year average growth is doing very well. The business index up by 3.1%, two-year average growth is 5.6%. There are several characteristics with the service industry. First of all, context-based services, they are hard hit by COVID-19. Catering and restoration last month registered growth of 1.3% year-on-year. Transportation, due to the reduction of the passenger number, two-year average growth of 5.5%, and the monthly increase has narrowed. The contact-based service has been hard hit. However, modern services are doing very well. Transmission and also the software industries, two-year average growth of 13.3%, higher than the average of the whole service sector. Finance production index, two-year growth of 6.6%, also higher than the previous month figure. That's because we have more support to the physical economy. And thirdly, manufacturing activity related services are recovering. Last month, industrial activities are doing better, and the related services are also growing correspondingly. Leasing and commercial services up by 5.6% on a two-year basis. For the turnover of the goods, the growth has also been accelerated. For the PMI of services, production-related index is above 55, which is in a very high level. And some service departments hit by the COVID-19 have already shown the signs of recovery. We have the well-targeted policies to contain the COVID-19, and at the same time, we also have measures to improve the quality of the national economic growth. To your second question, next stage of development for the real estate. Just now, I have already touched upon that topic, so no more information added here. That is all for today's press conference. Thank you very much, Mr. Fu, and thank you for your participation.